Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Devin and I read books, and this is Devin Reads Books, and I am still chugging away at my Romantasy vlog. But today we're going to talk about the books that made me. So the books that were the most important to me in my development growing up. So this is a video idea I saw Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews do, and now I keep seeing it, and I thought it would be fun to kind of do myself. So I grabbed 4 books here. We will go through them in order of kind of like a timeline of younger me to closest to my current age. But first, one brief announcement. Going forward, we are going to be doing weekly videos on this channel. I was doing 2 a week, but I am going to cut that down to just 1. And this is for a couple reasons. So first, things are just a little hectic in life right now, but more importantly, you guys just like the vlogs more. You guys just like the longer form content a little more. It just always performs better than these kind of sit and talk videos like I talked about in my last video. So we are going to start doing that. I hope to have the Romantasy vlog up next week, but if not, we'll do another little small one. But going forward, it's going to be 1 a week. I don't know exactly what day. I'm leaning towards Thursday or Friday. We will see. That said, announcements over. Let's get into the books that were important to me growing up. So the first book in my stack here, I read in about the 4th grade. 4th or 5th. I'm pretty sure it was 4th grade. A teacher knew that I was a big reader, and he knew that I was reading books that a kid my age probably shouldn't have been reading. Most kids wouldn't have been interested in. But he thought I would really like this, and he was right. And so he gave me his copy, and that is The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. This is a very beat up copy. It was beat up when I got it, and I have put new tape and like my own care into it because I've read this 3 or 4 times myself. I love this book. So it is a non-traditional Stephen King book. If you don't know, it is not horror. It's not really portal fantasy. It is just fantasy about these kind of 2 brothers and a evil wizard who manipulates their father and kind of eventually the little brother and takes over the kingdom. Kind of generic story, but very, very fun. Very cool. Definitely a couple scenes in here a 10-year-old probably shouldn't have been reading about, but this was my first adult fantasy book, like looking back, because I didn't try Wheel of Time until like 6th grade. I was at a different school when I read that. So I don't think I read a single like adult fantasy until I read this. I was big into like the Star Wars extended universe and stuff, but that's sci-fi. That we're not gonna count that. I'm pretty sure this was the big adult fantasy that kind of set me on that trajectory. And then really quick, I didn't say in the beginning, but there are series that we're not gonna talk about in this video or a part 2 of this video, just because that would be the entire video. Like I can't talk about Fear Street because there were so many Fear Street books, and even Goosebumps, which I've talked about before, were not as impactful for me. But there were just so many that it would be hard to single any out. I'm not going to talk about the Riordan versus the Percy Jackson series because that whole series is just super important to me. But book number 2 that we are going to talk about is not technically adult fantasy, but in has a lot of scenes that are darker than what happens in The Eyes of the Dragon. And I remember when I first heard about this, it was upperclassmen. I was in like 3rd grade, but they had brought in upperclassmen during lunch to kind of read it to the 3rd graders. The kid had a stutter, so it was a part of like his occupational therapy. And just the cover alone, I wanted in. And it's pretty much built my love of dragon fantasy, but that is Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Now, I think a lot of the criticisms of this book are valid. It is basically A New Hope. I love that, honestly. But if you watch my channel at all, you know that I do really appreciate tropes sometimes. Sometimes I like knowing what I'm going into. Other complaints are also very valid. Christopher Paolini's dialogue, even to this day, is still pretty clunky. It's so much better than it was in his first book, but it's still a bit clunky, and same with exposition. But I have read this book a million times. This isn't even my original copy. That is locked in a safe at my mom's for other personal reasons. And I have a hardcover, so I have a full hardcover set. This series just means a lot to me. This is, like I said, it's a new hope. Farm boy becomes a dragon rider, saves the kingdom. Elves, it's kind of like a simplified magic universe. So there is a complex lore, but it doesn't reinvent the wheel on things like races other than Urgals, which are really just orcs. But, you know, you get humans, elves, dwarves, Urgals, dragons, animals, and it just focuses on the characters and story. And I love it very much, to the point that I would have the ancient language, the magic system, which they put like translations in the back. Like, middle school me had some of like these phrases memorized. I could just read it like I was reading Spanish. Or English, but I grew up in a bilingual household. So this was just incredibly foundational to me. I would spend hours on the website. My copy of Eldest is the first like big book that I bought with my own money. I still remember walking into a Books A Million in the mall and buying it. I love this series. I just genuinely do. The next book I got around the same couple years. I think it was a 5th or 6th grade. I believe I lived in the greenhouse, which you guys have no basis for what that means at the time. But my grandparents for my entire life had a subscription for, I think it was called Children's Book of the Month. And every month they would send 2 books by like age group, for my age group. And they were usually hits. I got another one up here that I'm gonna read later this summer for another video. But I got this and I was completely enthralled. Absolutely loved it. I found the world so cool. I found the characters and the way familiars kind of work incredible. And that is Philip Pullman's The Golden Compass. Everyone remembers because the polar bears have hats with spikes. But this is a really, really cool book. So like there is this ministry that is kind of oversees everything, and all the people in the world are bonded with these daemons, or you could also read it as demons. I always read it as daemons. I think technically it's pronounced demons now that I'm in my 30s and I'm a better reader. I don't care. But when you're young, they can change shape. And then as you kind of grow into who you are, they solidify. And this book focuses on Lyra, who kind of grew up with the scholars at Jordan College. Her uncle is like professor, adventurer, Indiana Jones type. And she's always heard this talk of this extraordinary particle called dust. And then they end up going on this adventure. She makes a friend goes missing, whole big thing. It gets really dark, really, really, really dark for like older children's and YA fantasy. But I love this book. I was so happy. I talked about in another video that I got the full set in these pretty paperback editions. But this book was really, really important to me. For a long time, it was one of my favorite fantasy series. There was a period where I had read and reread the Eragon books so much that I was just done. And this was kind of what I jumped to next. Oh, it's bringing back so many memories. I don't know where my original copies went. I have no idea. Just no basis. And it really bums me out because I have most of my childhood books still. The vast majority, I know either exactly where they are or exactly where they went. Because over the years, there were some that I would donate to libraries and things like that. But not this one. And I don't know why. And that bothers me. I love these editions. I definitely want to reread this series this year if I can. Hopefully. We'll see. I got a lot of plans coming up. But the last book on this list, very different vibes. Just very different. I read it in 7th grade. It was kind of the peak of like, I don't remember what it was called. Everyone remembers it, but it was, you would have to read the book and then you would take a quiz on the book and you'll get these points. I thought it was dumb. Like, because like not everything would be listed, and it was just like, don't dictate what I want to read, what I have to read. That's stupid. But I don't remember what gravitated me towards this book. And it was the first book by this author I ever read, and I've read so much more by him. And out of all of these books, the other three had a very strong impact on my taste in books. But this book had a strong impact on my character as I grew up. Because I don't think it's possible to read this book and not come out of it with a strengthened sense of empathy for people in society at large. But that is John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. Now, if you are a filthy millennial like myself from the Bible Belt in the Midwest, you probably remember The Grapes of Wrath from VeggieTales, which did not do a very good job of explaining this book in any way. But this book focuses on a family, but not really just a family, kind of everyone they meet in all their entire journey during the Dust Bowl migration during the Great Depression. It's just literally one Oklahoma family, so around where I live now, because I live in Colorado, you know, and for people who aren't from the United States, who have never been out this way, trying to understand the terrain and what life would have been like in the Great Depression out here is a little hard. But even now, with modernization and all these cities, if you're in between towns, it's just nothing but dust, dry, arid land for 100 miles in some places. And these are people who are already sick, they're already poor, they're already broke, and they're just trying to get to California. Not necessarily for like the gold rush, but because there's supposedly jobs and opportunities. And it's this massive journey of a drive. And there's just so much hardship, cruelty, almost natural and people driven in this book and what the Joads go through, that this was one of the, I don't think it was the first classic I ever read, but it might have been the first great American classic I ever read. But it's a book that like completely changed my kind of outlook on people and society and kind of how things should function in America. I love this book. It is probably my favorite Steinbeck. I really like Of Mice and Men. I think if I have to pick one, life or death, it's probably going to be The Grapes of Wrath. Guys, those were 4 very important books to me and my development, not just as a reader, as a person. I will probably do a part 2, but there's one book that I need to try and hunt down my original version of, if I can find it. And then I will add a few more to that list. Again, this series, I'm not gonna talk about certain things like Goosebumps or Fear Street or the Riordan verse, or like even Harry Potter. Like, come on, I'm in my 30s. We all grew up with Harry Potter. Like, that's a given. If we all put that on our list, that would just be the list. So we're not gonna talk about those. Keep an eye out for not just a part 2 of this series, but for my Romantasy vlog that should hopefully be coming next week. I'm having a blast filming it. I got some B-roll and some stuff that I need to add to it though. But that is all for this video, guys. I appreciate your patience. I'm sorry we're going down to 1 video a week, but I think that is going to give me the opportunity to really put out better and more refined content for you all out there. So if you like this video, please consider subscribing if you have not already, dropping a like, and I will catch you next time.